Conflict. Perhaps one of the most scary things out there. Especially in the church, we do not like conflict because we want to love one another and get along. So when someone does something wrong against us, we may just ignore it or leave it alone and hope that it goes away. Or maybe sometimes we even strike out and hope to solve the issue. Well, our gospel reading today is all about conflict within the church and how we're meant to deal with it. The reading is Matthew 18 verses 15 to 17. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, well, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Intimidating stuff. So let's unpack it, because it's not as bad as it may seem. In short, the reading states, if someone in the church sins, point it out. If they won't listen, bring in a mutual friend to help settle the dispute. If they still won't listen, seek help from the church. If they won't listen to the church, treat them as if they were a pagan or a tax collector. It still sounds bad, but Jesus put it there for a reason. Jesus is telling us the very clear instructions on how to deal with conflict. The first step, Jesus states, is to address it. This isn't to be a public or aggressive event, but a private meeting with the intent to bring the problem to rest there. Christ says this because he doesn't want any problems given time to fester. He says this because he doesn't want us to sin and cause pain for one another or against his Father. He says this because he doesn't want hate in our church. He wants a loving and caring family who point out each other's faults and build each other up. So what follows next in the text only happens when the problem isn't able to be sorted. We may call in a mutual friend, a neutral party, to help mediate through the issue. If that doesn't work, we call for help from the church. We call for our church leaders and ask them to mediate. And that is where the issue seemingly ends, because if that doesn't work, we're now meant to treat them like pagans or tax collectors, according to Jesus. Seems cruel, but after a lot of thinking, I couldn't think of a single time that Jesus was ever hateful to a tax collector, where he didn't show them love and kindness. No, quite the opposite, because they were tax collectors, because they were sinners, because they were lost. Christ showed them that he still loved them. He gave them help and teaching, and he showed them massive amounts of care. Why? Because they were lost, and he wants them back in his church, in our family. Proof of concept, by the way. The very gospel where these verses come from are written by Matthew, the former tax collector. To conclude, we deal with conflict with care, and we deal with conflict because we care. Christ calls us to love one another, and because we love one another, we will address conflict with each other. And if the conflict cannot be sorted, then, like Jesus, we give them more care, because we want, and Christ wants, them back in good relationship.